Hi, this is Coach English, co-host of the Staley and English Show featuring Coach Kurt's podcast. Each week, myself, along with Coach Staley and Coach Kurtz, discuss an array of different topics from the high school coach's perspectives. Topics such as the keys to success, how to make your high school team, the importance of women in lives, the importance of fathers. It's a show about different topics from a high school coach's perspective. So tune in to the Staley and English Show featuring Coach Kurt's podcast, powered by Defy Life, on all podcast platforms.
Welcome to the Coach Staley, Coach English Show.
The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
The warning. Phase 1. The seed is planted when opposites attract. Can you dig it? It takes the physical to create the physical. Phase 2. The flower blossoms through what seems to be a concrete surface, i.e., greed, racism, insanity, physical and social handicaps. These are the things that mold the flower. Red rose or black rose, no in between. Phase 3. The judgment. If it were to fall upon you today, which flower would you be? The red rose or the black? This is the warning.
And it should be the public sector leading the charge on this, because we're entering the age of AI. We're going to have self-driving cars and trucks in 5 to 10 years. 30% of malls are going to close in the next 4 years thanks to Amazon. 2.5 million call center workers in the U.S. are going to get replaced by AI. There was a study in The Guardian that said the median African-American household net worth is going to be zero by 2053, like in 34 years. You guys see that study?
No.
Well, yeah, you should look it up. And so why are they forecasting that African-American net worth is going to go to zero? It's because of this economic tidal wave that is coming. This economic tidal wave is going to wipe out many working-class jobs. And it's going to be the equivalent of a natural disaster. And we know what happens in a natural disaster. Who suffers? Poor people who don't have the resources, people of color, and the same thing is going to happen in this. So that's why I'm running for president, is I can see the tidal wave coming very, very clearly.
Hello and hotel. This is Brother Khemmett coming at you with another podcast from the Defy Life Podcast Network. You can reach me at blackgumbo@gmail.com. That is blackgumbo@gmail.com. BLAQUE@gmail.com. We're going to jump right into this. We're not even going to stir the pot because the pot has already been stirred. You guys just got finished listening to the 2020 candidate for president, Mr. Andrew Yang. And Mr. Andrew Yang is bringing some real interesting points. He's bringing some real valuable information, and he just gave us a warning shot. And this is what I call an economic warning shot. Warning shots come in all forms and fashions. We'll go back in history for just a few, and we'll go to our religious people. Our religious people, if you remember this story that's in the Bible, it's a story about a man that was told to build an ark. And this ark was supposed to be constructed during some of the best times. There was no storms. There was no rain. There was no clouds overhead. There wasn't anything going on. Matter of fact, it was a long time before the event that was supposed to take place. But this person was told to build an ark, and they followed the advice. They built the ark. I know most of you understand what I'm saying from my religious people. You guys know how the story goes. But the point of the story was preparing people for something that was coming down the pipeline that most people couldn't see. Pretty much no one saw what was coming down, and Noah wouldn't have knew if he was not given instructions beforehand. He wouldn't have knew what was coming either. So in 2002, this guy named Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote a book called Prophecy. And in his book, he stated that between 2007 and 2010, that America was going to experience what he called a economic tsunami or economic disaster. And what he was referring to was the market crash of 2008. Now, I know everybody who lived through this particular time, they call it the Great Recession. but there was a lot of carnage in the street. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people 401ks lost a lot of value, and a lot of people at that time did not understand that their 401ks was put into the stock market, that their money was in the stock market. They didn't really understand how all that worked. And in 2006, Robert Kiyosaki teamed up with Donald Trump, and they wrote another book called Why We Want You to Be Rich. And in that book, they talked about basically the same thing. They talked about this tsunami, this economic tsunami that was coming to the United States that was going to do a lot of economic destruction. And they were banging the drum, and they was using the same forecast. And one of the things interesting about Robert Kiyosaki in his book Prophecy, going back to that, he talks about us building an ark. He was talking about people need to build a financial ark, not a physical, but a financial ark, where we need to learn basic principles of financial literacy. We need to understand that we need more than one source of income, just in case something happened to one of our sources, like we found out when a lot of people were laid off and they only had one source of income. That put people in a terrible bind. So financial literacy is something that he was speaking of highly. Like I say, so we had these warning shots, and a lot of people took heed and prepared for them. But for a lot of people, there were no warning shots. I want you guys to think back to before the market crashed and before all these things took place in 2008. Did anybody warn you? Were there any signs out? Were there any innuendos about what was coming down? Did the people who run your 401k, did they give you any indication that the market was going through a period and something was about to take place? Did your financial institutions such as banks, did they give you any warning? Did the federal government or did the politicians give any warning to any of us what was taking place? Just go back and think back. Did we get any kind of warning signs? Because I think if a lot of us would have got warning signs, we would have did something different. But what happened is most people, pretty much none of us had warning signs, and there were a lot of people. Not a lot. There were a couple handful of people like Robert Kiyosaki, who was out beating the drum, Dr. Boris Watkins, who was beating the drum and who was explaining and telling us that something was coming down the pipeline and that we really needed to start making some changes because we was finna experience something that we have never saw before. And trust me, if you go back and read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Prophecy, you will see the things that he talked about in his book, they actually came to pass. But getting back to Andrew Yang, and this was a report that came from the Breakfast Club. He came on the Breakfast Club and he was laying out his platform. Part of his platform is he said he wanted to bring about a universal basic income. And what that means is that he wanted to give all Americans $1,000 a month. With no question asked, to everyone. He didn't want it to be a certain, what you would say, pay level. He wanted to do it everywhere. That way it wouldn't be put into a thing like people who want assistance. So you say, well, you guys get this here, or make it something negative. So if he gave it to everyone, no one could complain about it. The whole reason he wanted to do that is because Mr. Yang, he comes from Silicon Valley. And in the United States, we are the number one leading in AI technology. We are the number one country on the planet leading AI technology. Mr. Yang was a part of that, is still a part of that. And he knows what's coming down the pipeline. AI is coming in. Robotics, automation is coming in. We already see it in our grocery stores. We already see it in some of the fast food. And what he's talking about is because of AI, there are going to be 30, 40, up to 50% of jobs that's going to disappear, not in just the U.S., we talk about in the world, because of AI and because of this new technology. And this technology, we're finna go through a technological revolution. And this technological revolution is going to be like something we have never seen before, because we don't have to build a massive infrastructure as we did through the Industrial Revolution, because the infrastructure is already in place. It's called the internet. So because that is already in place, it's going to make things move rapidly. And here are some of the jobs that are going to disappear. Bank tellers, truck drivers, cab services, they're going to disappear. Fast food, you're only going to need 3 to 4 people to run a store. 50% of all colleges and universities are going to close down. Most of them are going to go online. 50% of all attorneys are going to be eliminated. We already understand cashiers are going to disappear. Any job that has an intermediary or any job that has a middleman, such as a real estate agent, all those jobs are going to disappear. All plants and factories are going to be automated, so they're not going to need but a few people to run plants. These are some of the jobs that is going to disappear. Blockchain technology also is coming. It's going to be a disruptor. It's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. This stuff is coming down the pipeline, and the report that he was referring to out of The Guardian, that report was saying that if black folks continue on the trend that they're on, by the year 2053, their median income is going to go to zero. Now, that's just a projection. That's just a prediction. We understand that this stuff is not the gospel. We understand that. But what he's saying is that if we continue on this trend that we on, and the trend that they are not speaking about in the report is called consumerism. Black people in America spend $1.4 trillion a year in the GDP. That's the gross domestic product in the United States. That's how much money we spend into this economy. The problem with that is we only own less than 1% of the goods and services that we take in. Now, we have to understand that we are spending $1.4 trillion a year into this economy, but we don't capture hardly any of that money. Most of that money that we spend go to other people because we have been addicted to consumerism. And it's fair to say we are addicted to consumerism. We buy up more stuff than any population of people on the planet. We spend our money on stuff that has no intrinsic value than any other people in the United States. We're only about 13 to 14% of the population, so it's about 45 million of us, and most of our money go on things that have no value. There's another report that said in the United States they are right at 12 million millionaires in the United States. The sad part of that is only about 45,000 of millionaires in the United States are black. Half of those are athletes and entertainers. So we only got about 22.5 black millionaires who actually have become millionaires outside of being in entertainment and outside of being in the athletic world. And we only have 3 black billionaires inside the United States compared to almost 500 billionaires in the United States. We only have 3. We know there's a logical reason why this is, and we understand that the destruction that has taken place, the hatred that has taken place from slavery, from Jim Crow to separate but equal, the damage that has been done to us. We understand why the conditions are what they are. But at the same time, I'm here for solutions. There's a great documentary on called Trigger Warning by Killer Mike. If you get a chance, it's on Netflix. If you get a chance, please take a look at this documentary because it's all about solutions. If you go back and listen to my podcast from the second episode called Economic Solutions, please go back and take a listen to Economic Solutions because we lay out solutions. There's solutions. We understand what the problem, but we're not even having a conversation about the problem because that conversation has been hashed out a million times. We want to go forward with solutions. The main solutions for what we're dealing with, we already have blueprints that show us how to solve these problems. And what I mean by that is we can go back and look at Serena and Venus Williams. We look at the parents of Venus and Serena, and we look at what they did. They saw something about the pay of tennis. That sparked something in them that made them decide to teach themselves tennis and then teach it to them girls to their girls at an early age. Now, what happens when you start training someone at such an early age? You instill certain principles in them because we understand that your core values and your core beliefs are instilled in you by the time you're 8 to 10 years old. We understand that through psychology now. And they start instilling tennis into their little girls. And now Venus and Serena have become the number one tennis players in the world. In the world, without a doubt. We also can look at Tiger Woods as a great example. His father started training him at an early age. I'm talking about 4, 5 years old. He started instilling him the principles of golf. He became the number one golf player in the world. So this is our blueprint. So here's solutions. This is my 2 cents. I'm not saying I have the answer to all problems. I'm not saying that. And this may not be for you. You may be in a great position. You may have financial literacy. You may be doing great financially. So this may not be for you. But you may be able to share this with somebody who may need to know. Because in the black community, and not all of us are poor. So I don't want to use that stereotype because all of us are not poor. But collectively, we need to start making some changes. And here are 4 basic points that can help us make these changes. And we need to start instilling these points into our kids before they're 15 years old. Like I say, in the Guardian report, it says in 2053. So we're talking 34 years, 35 years. Because what Andrew Yang was explaining to us is this stuff is going to take place rapidly. And we understand as adults, 10, 15, 20 years come quick. So we need to start preparing ourselves. We need to start preparing our youth because, like I say, this is the warning shot. This is our warning. So here's 4 basic principles. Number 1, all kids need to learn basic principles of law. Parents, we need to learn it also. Number 2, all kids need to learn financial literacy. And I want to break that down just a little bit because I use the term, but a lot of times I don't go into detail. So financial literacy is learning a skill in the art of financing money, and it's learning how to manage, learning how to invest your money. It's not learning how to open up a IRA and have somebody else run it. It's not learning how to have a 401k and have somebody else operate it. This is something that you learn. You learn the skill of money management. You learn about investing. This is what financial literacy. You learn how interest rates work. You learn how you can use them to work to your benefit and not against you. Give you an example. When you buy a house and you have a compound interest on your interest rate, it's working against you. But when you make investments that have compound interest, it's working for you. So these are the things and the skills that we need to know. We need to have a form of self-defense. Whatever you choose to do, you need to have some form of self-defense. We're living in a crazy world, and it's not getting any better. A lot of people are feeling emboldened today because of a lot of conditions that are being raised today. So our boys and our girls and our men and our women, they need to learn self-defense. The 4th one, by the time your child is 15 years old, they need to know how to run their own business. They need to know about entrepreneurship. And we're not saying that every child, every kid, every adult is going to have their own business. What I'm saying is you need to know about it. These are principles that need to be instilled in you from a young age because we live in a society that has a system in place, and the system is completely backwards because it teaches you to do a whole bunch of stuff first, but it never teaches you about money. You go to school for 12, 16 years, but during that whole time, you never learn about money and money management. So my objective and my thought pattern is that we teach people how to make money first, and then if they want to go to school, it'll make it easy. It'll make it less stressful for them and their parents because they can learn how to make money. And what I mean by that is this. Learning how to make money is not difficult at all. It's just that we've been told that we have to do all these other things first in order to get to the money. And all I'm saying is that's not true. You can develop the skills to learn how to make money while you in high school. And if this stuff is instilled in you from the time that you are going through 5th grade on up, you learn how to make money before you're 16, 17 years old. You can have your own business. Especially today, it don't take a lot of money to have a business. You can start a business for $200, $500. And a lot of kids can make that over the internet doing different things. He talked about Amazon and the effect on the malls being closed. Okay, that's fine. The malls can be closed, but guess what? We can sell products on Amazon. We can teach our kids and ourselves. We can sell products on Amazon because Amazon sell products to the whole world. So we don't care whether the mall's closed now. We have to learn to adapt and overcome. So like I said, there's solutions to our problems. Very simple solutions. We can teach our kids about real estate investing. We can teach ourselves about real estate investing. We can teach ourselves about the stock market. The stock market is one of the best ways that we can counteract all of this, because it only takes about 8 months to a year to learn the skills to be a good trader in the stock market. If you go back and look at episode 2, I introduced you guys to a young man named Curtis Carroll. Curtis Carroll is in San Quentin prison for robbery murder. He had a life sentence. He may be getting the sentence. He may be getting out. But Curtis Carroll, he went there at 17. He couldn't read, couldn't write. He taught himself how to read, and then he got into the finance world. He got into stocks. And what he was able to do, he transcended himself, even though he's still in prison. This brother made $200,000 to $300,000 a year in prison. If I'm not mistaken, he's already a millionaire inside prison, and he's also teaching stock trading. So what I always tell people, if this brother who had to learn how to read and has built an empire in prison on the stock investing and stock trading, then there's no way that we're out here in the real world. And we didn't have a problem with reading and writing. We know how to do it because most of us have went to school and went, to higher education in college. So there's nothing, all it takes is time. Now, people say, well, where I'm going to get the time to learn this? The same way we teach people how to pay down debt without actually getting a second job or generating any more money. We teach them how to start cutting out certain things that they can set money aside to pay this debt down. So my suggestion is there's certain things that we can cut out in our lifestyle which will provide the time to allow us. Because look, the things like we spend a lot of money on sports and entertainment. I'm just using those as examples because those are the two biggest things that stand out to me. We can cut some of that time down, but we can take an hour out of our time to learn about financial literacy. That's an episode of a TV show that we might watch. I heard a report that it takes when the athlete, by the time they're in middle school and they're training for pros, they had the aspiration to go to pro. They spend, from that time on, they spend about 300 hours a year honing their craft. But at the same time, we all know that most black athletes go broke. 70%, and I shouldn't say most, based on the statistics, 70% of black athletes go broke within 3 years of retirement, if not before. So that tells us they spent 300 hours a year on honing their craft, but 0 hours on learning financial literacy, and this is the reason they go broke. And I'm only using sports because that was a statistic I heard. But we can put this with anything because we all understand whatever you do the most, you're going to do best. So that's what I'm saying. We have to, as parents, we have to learn these skills of financial literacy so we can start putting them into our kids at an early age and setting up these programs. And when we get back to black males, it should be almost against the law because in a society that we live in, the male is supposed to provide for his household. So if your child goes out without knowing how to provide, it should be against the law. That's how important this should be. Parents should be almost have a fine locked up if they don't teach this and instill this into their especially the young men. I'm saying we should have it across the board, but especially the young black male, because this is one of the things that's really hurting our young black men is, a lot of them have been disenfranchised. They don't want to do the school thing because the way the system is set up. The system is really rigged against us, and I'm not saying all across the board, but in a lot of places it's rigged against us, and they're not feeling it. So these are things that we can do that they will enjoy. I've seen how young kids light up when you start teaching them things like this here, because they see hope. You got me? They see hope that if they learn how to make money, they can accomplish all the other things and the dreams that they have, but if they learn how to make money first. Andrew Yang has given us a warning shot, and we need to take that under advisement. We need to teach ourselves. We need to get our kids and instill this information into our kids. So this is the warning shot. Please take heed. I'm very passionate about this because this is one of the things that has really hurt our community, not having financial literacy. So please take a look at Robert Kiyosaki's books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You can go on YouTube and you can check out Dr. Boyce Watkins. And I want to introduce you to another young man. His name is Kai-Fu Lee. Kai-Fu Lee has a book out now. His book is called AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. This brother is bringing the information about this technology that Mr. Yang is speaking of, and he's the world authority on AI. So please check his book out if you want to know further about AI Superpowers, China, and Silicon Valley. Thank you. This has been a warning.
Hey, Siri.
Hey, how may I help you?
Play the Relationship Status Podcast.
Playing the Relationship Status Podcast.
I would ask him, like, what are you doing? Where are you going with this? What are you trying? And he really didn't have, like, a real answer. Okay. So I didn't feel like we were going to be compatible later on down the line.
I think that goes back to something I've often heard and think myself, that men date women thinking they're never going to change, and women date men
thinking that they are,
thinking that they can change them.
Relationship Status. New episode every Monday at 12 noon on Defy Life Network.